Welcome to Corona Stories from Observing the Process. I'm your host, Alex Greenberg. And before we start, I'm hoping you can help me out by supporting the show. You can do this by going to my website, observingtheprocess.com. For just $5 a month or $50 for the year, you can become a monthly supporter. This show relies on listener support to stay on the air. So if you find this content valuable, I hope you will consider subscribing. You can find a link to subscribe in the description of this podcast. If you can't support monthly, no worries. You can help out by rating and reviewing on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can share it with your friends, you can blog about it, or discuss it on your own podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you for supporting the show. Listeners like you make it possible. If you are looking for information on how to protect yourself and stay safe from COVID-19, please get information from the CDC or the World Health Organization. Today on the show, I had Tommaso Adami. Tommaso is an English teacher who is based in Italy. Please welcome Tommaso Adami.
In the land of China, people hardly got nothing at all.
No possessions?
And in China, they never go to church.
No religion too?
Or do magic.
Well, it's easy if you try, Dick.
Hello?
Hey, Tommy, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Alex?
Pretty good, all things considered. Pretty safe here in New York, just kind of hanging out, doing a bunch of these calls. You're in Italy, is that right?
Yeah, I'm in Milan. I just picked up the phone from my apartment in Milan, where I'm quarantined currently.
Okay, so before we start with the whole story, maybe you could give a brief background, introduce yourself, where you're based, what you do for work, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So my name is Tommaso Adami. I'm 27 years old. I'm Italian, and I work mainly as an English teacher. I do online classes, so I work between Milan and Switzerland, where my girlfriend lives, since I can work mostly from my laptop. I also do translations, interpreting services, and I've recently started a football blog with a friend of mine, since that's my biggest passion, I would say.
Awesome. When and how did you first hear about the coronavirus?
So one of my very good friends, Michael, he actually currently lives in China with his girlfriend, and he lives in Nanning. And I started hearing about the coronavirus from him at the beginning of January. We talked on the phone one day, and he just mentioned that people were talking a lot about a virus going on, but he didn't know that much. I feel like he had just heard about it, and he was asking me whether in Europe we were talking about it too. And I said, no, not really.
Okay. And
so that was the
sorry, you
very
kind of
first
cut out
time
the end there for a second. You said you didn't hear about it in Italy or in Europe, rather?
No, not really. This phone call that we had was probably around mid-January, and I had not heard about it that much. No, honestly.
Okay. And you mentioned in your notes actually that you were in Switzerland. Is that right at the time? So basically you were kind of deciding whether to go back to Italy or not. That's part of your story?
Yeah. So basically I was in Switzerland at my girlfriend's place, and I had to come back to Italy to take my driver's license test. I know I'm 27 years old, but I've never gotten my driver's license. But at that point, the first restrictive measures had started in Italy, but they were not as strict as the current ones. So there were a bunch of people who were affected, but even the mayor of Milan was urging people not to freak out. He was saying some people are sick. It's mainly the elderly who contract the virus. People can still go out, eat a pizza out with their friends and whatnot. So I thought, if this is what the mayor of Milan is saying, I can definitely go back to take my test. And my girlfriend was not very happy about it. It feels like she had understood how serious of a problem it was before I did. and she was advising I stay there in Switzerland and not come back. So on my way back to Italy, I stopped in Lugano, which is a pretty big city in the Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, where I have a good friend who lives there. We spent the day together, and I was planning to sleep at his place, and the next day we would drive together to Milan. And all of a sudden, I was sitting on the couch drinking a glass of wine, and he says, "Holy shit, they're shutting down our region, Lombardy, where Milan is in." And I wasn't really grasping the seriousness of the situation until I saw him like nervously going around the apartment, packing up his stuff and telling me, "Tommaso, we need to go right now." And we did have a choice whether we wanted to stay in Switzerland or we wanted to come back. I'm not really the patriotic type of guy, but in this situation, I felt almost guilty picturing myself outside of my city, outside of my country, and living such a strange period for my family, my friends, and my country abroad.
Yeah, I totally understand wanting to get back. I mean, it was super important for me to get back with my family, even though it's almost funny. It's a semi-similar. I was in Portland, Oregon, and that was like early-ish March when it was starting to get really bad, like right around when the travel ban to Europe happened in America. And I was just kind of like there because I'm stuck in America. So I was traveling around meeting friends. And then as soon as that happened, I was like, oh man, I wish I never even went to Portland, because like literally the day I got there is when they started the travel ban to Europe, and it all felt so serious. And I was going to stay there longer. I was only there for a weekend, but then on the Monday, when it felt like it was getting more and more serious every day, I decided to fly back to New York because I thought it was a possibility that they would shut down domestic flights and stuff like that. So it's interesting. We almost had a similar situation. Like we were going to, a more dangerous area than we currently were, but it was like, you just got to be with your family. You got to stay together. I bet a lot of people had to make that decision to just kind of get back to where they needed to be.
Yeah, it felt a bit, I don't know about your experience, but from my point of view, it really felt like a movie for a second. And years of this life, I've never seen a situation where, my friend was packing all of the stuff he had, and he was like, "Tommaso, we got to go back before they shut down the region." It felt like an apocalyptic movie of some sort.
Oh, so one thing I want to talk to you specifically about is just Italy in general, because for me, at least my perspective, Italy was the first place to really kind of get hit hard besides China, obviously. China is like the origin of where it started, and then it spread, and then like maybe South Korean got hit first, but that like made sense. It's so close. For some reason, Italy seemed like the next place that got hit super hard out of nowhere, and that's when I think the world started to be like, oh, like it is going to travel. So I kind of wanted to talk to you about, when you do make it back to Italy, your daily life. What was that like? I mean, it must have been so foreign to what is normally like in Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first day that I got back to Italy, that night, it was a Saturday, and the following day was a Sunday. And a lot of Italians had received the news that the region was going to shut down, but it wasn't official. It was a draft from the government that leaked, and somebody probably texted it to their family on WhatsApp, and then it just started going viral. So all of a sudden, Italians found out about these measures that were about to be taken. So the next day, the measures became effective. But the Sunday was pretty weird because I met up with my friends. We went to the park here by my house, and people were still out and about, having a beer, chatting. There were less people on the streets, but the park was packed with people. Well, that day, they started enforcing stricter measures. From the following day, parks were closed, And now we've gotten to the point where we can only go to supermarkets, or if the police stop, you must have a reasonable excuse for being outside. So when I started realizing that this quarantine was not really a joke, was probably on the Monday or on the Tuesday even. And yeah, I mean, as an Italian, when I travel, when I spend a lot of time in Switzerland with my girlfriend, what I love the most about coming back to Italy is the life happening outside of your home. I wake up in the morning, even if I have an espresso machine at my home, I like to go to the little bar next door, get my coffee, chat with the bartender. Then at night, you have a few beers with your friends outside. We tended to stay out pretty late, have a few drinks with our friends. And this quarantine removed everything that I love about my country almost, including football, which is what keeps me distracted when I feel a bit down. It's an unprecedented situation in my life, in our lives all over the world. And yeah, it's strange. At the beginning, I was really feeling like a bear in a cage in a zoo, Now
Yeah.
I've gotten used to it. It took a few weeks, but then, I mean, I can still do my work from home. Netflix is a great way to spend time. And then I've been reconnecting with people I had met during my travels. I've been working out at home. And then, yeah, you learn ways to kill time.
Awesome. So this next question, you kind of segued quite nicely into it. You were talking a lot about your culture and what you love about Italy. A question I ask all of my guests is how different cultures are handling this pandemic. So I was talking to someone else the other day doing one of these calls, and they mentioned a reason why it might have exploded quite quickly in Italy is the general culture. Like, people kiss to say hello. It's a very like loving, somewhat touching culture. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how people in general, like your friends and family, like the culture of Italy in general is handling the pandemic. Speak a little bit more to that. Was interesting how it leaked via WhatsApp. And it kind of spread like that. So I'm just curious about, initially how, like, were people respecting authority? Was it kind of like, oh, I know what's good for me? Or talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Italy, Alex?
No, unfortunately, I have not had the opportunity.
All right. So if you ever come to Italy, you realize that we are, maybe you've met Italians, but we tend to joke about everything, So so there is this story, like it was in the 1980s, when putting the safety belt in the car, your seat belt, it became a law that you couldn't circumvent in any way. People in various towns in Italy, I think it's a trend that started in Naples. They started printing white T-shirts with a stripe, with a diagonal black stripe in the middle.
Totally,
so if the cops saw them, it looked like they were wearing seatbelts. In a situation like that, you just have to put a seatbelt on. But we always tend to take it as a joke, and you have to find a way around it, That's why I think the first day that the quarantine was enforced, people didn't really grasp the magnitude of this. People were still going out, me included. I'm one of those people. And so then the government was just like, all right, for the first time in our history, we're going to have to enforce a very strict quarantine. We are going to put fines. We're going to put police blocks on the roads in Milan, in all over the country, so that people must have a reason to leave their homes. If they don't, we're going to find them, and they could commit a felony potentially. So when our prime minister had a big talk for the citizens of Italy, for all Italians, and he said, this is a very serious thing. If you want to help, stay at home. And that's when people started picking up on the severity of the situation, in my opinion. And answering your first question, I do think that our culture, the fact that we hug a lot, we always kiss when we see each other, that could be, I'm not an epidemiologist nor anything like that, but I think that could be a reason why it spread over here more than in other countries.
Interesting.
I mean, it was strange the other day. My uncle had to come and pick up a few things to take to my grandma's retirement home, and it was very strange. I hadn't seen anybody in weeks, and when he crossed the door, my instinct was to go there and shake his hand and give him a kiss. And when he opened the door, I was on my way to hug him already, and then I see him wearing gloves and a mask and looking at me like, hey, let's respect the distance. And of course he's right. I just hadn't thought about it. I was so excited to seeing someone that I didn't even think about the precautions to take.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little more. You mentioned in your notes that your grandmother was in the hospital even before all this started. I hope everything's okay. If you're comfortable, maybe share that experience of how, I mean, because like that's one of the biggest problems that happened in Italy is just the sheer infrastructure was not there to take care of all the people at once, right?
Absolutely. So we have a public health system in Italy, which it's got a lot of haves and a lot of have-nots, but it usually delivers, and the people get the treatment that they need. I would say 80% of the time, which is very good. But we are in the middle of a situation, an unprecedented situation, and we just realized we didn't have enough, intensive therapy, intensive care unit beds. So people started raising money to give to hospitals so they could enlarge their structure. My grandmother, thank you for asking, she's doing okay. Yeah, I said she was in a retirement home because I didn't remember I had mentioned the hospital issue in my email. But she broke her femur in late November. Then she was in one hospital. She underwent surgery there. And then she got moved to another hospital for rehabilitation. And she was about to leave to go to a retirement home. And then this outbreak started and they completely shut down the hospital. So the other day, my uncle just came here to get some of her clothes that he could take to the hospital, give to a nurse. Actually, I think he drops them off outside of the hospital in a box, and then there is a nurse who comes to get them, and then she delivers them, each item, to every patient. Alex, she's 93 years old. She's a very strong woman, but the fact that her joy and walk people on their wheelchairs was to see me, my mom, my uncle, to share her family with the people she's met in the hospital. Right now, she can't even do that anymore. And she's mentioning, and I completely understand it, that nurses are not as nice as they used to be with the patients. But imagine the situation. I mean, you're a nurse working with the elderly, which are the people who are more likely to get the virus. And you're probably stressed out because of the current situation. And you're locked inside a hospital as well. So I can totally understand the situation. When I talk to her on the phone, she's feeling down, and I just try to tell her, look, I'm locked down in my apartment too. At least you have people around you. I have nobody. But you've survived 93 years. I'm sure you've survived one big war and many other events. And I'm sure we'll get past this together. And then before we know it, we're going to be able to hug each other again.
Tommaso, this segues very, very nicely into my next question, which is mental health in general. I mean, beyond the pandemic taking a clear physical toll on the world, I mean, every single person is dealing with, I would personally say for myself, mental health issues, just being cooped up all day. And you mentioned a whole nother aspect of what your grandmother is going through. So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to your thoughts on the media and how they're handling the situation. That's one aspect of the question. And then how that kind of translates into mental health. Because for me, I feel overwhelmed sometimes with the news and how much information is being thrown at me. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit about what's going on in Italy with the media, how they're handling the situation, and then also talk about your thoughts on mental health for this whole issue.
Definitely. So I will be very honest. I have a television that works. It's a smart TV, and I only watch on it. I only just connect my computer there, or I watch Netflix. I'm not the type of person that watches the news. I read a lot of articles online, but not only Italian newspapers. So to have a broader view, I speak 4 languages. So I have this, I'm lucky enough to be able to read news in different languages and then like take home whatever I think is important. So from that point of view, I haven't been watching the news that much. Every day at 6 p.m., actually right now as I'm speaking to you, I'm going to check later. The only thing that I do check is how many more people perished because of the virus, how many new sick people there are with the virus. That's the only thing that I check. In general, there has been a lot of involvement from the Prime Minister. He's been talking to the nation, I think, on a weekly basis. And it is uniting people beyond their political beliefs, which is good, in my opinion. And you can tell that he's a guy that actually really believes in the measures that are being adopted, and he really cares about this situation being solved as soon as possible. For what concerns more unorthodox means of communication and media, my WhatsApp, which is like the chat that we usually use here in Europe to send text and pictures, it's just blowing up with ridiculous pictures and jokes about the quarantine. And I think that's a good thing, that people are still able to find a smile and joke about things and make memes and share these funny things with you to sort of remove the pressure from our shoulders. And all these pictures and videos and funny clips, they definitely put a smile on your face. For what concerns my personal mental health, I felt a lot of pressure at the beginning because I felt very lazy. I'm not a lazy guy. I'm always out doing things. And I suddenly found myself binge watching Netflix. And that's not me. That's not the type of person that I am. I normally feel like that's a waste of time. And all of a sudden, I just felt like that was the right thing to do. So then you run out of series to watch on Netflix. What do? You talk on the phone with your friends. And all of a sudden, it's 2 a.m. Then I have a lot of friends in the United States. They are self-isolating as well. The time when they can talk, when they get off smart working, is around my bedtime. So all of a sudden you start Skyping with the 4 American friends, and next it's 5. You wake up the next day at 1, you make yourself some food. Maybe you go to the supermarket. But then what do you do? What do you do with the rest of the time you've got? I use the apartment that I'm in right now as an Airbnb when I'm not here. So I removed all my stuff from inside here. I don't even have good books to read. And I don't like reading books on my iPad or on my computer. So that's something that I can't do. But now I've started working out again. I've started actually working on my football blog, which has been very tough because there is no football going on. And it's a project we've recently started. But I'm learning to make the most out of my days. And I am definitely doing better than I was at the beginning. But since you talk about mental health, I'm starting to think, I was actually talking about it with my mom yesterday. I think there is going to be some sort of Stockholm syndrome when this is all over. So you know about the Stockholm syndrome, correct?
Kind of, not really. Maybe you could explain it just for... Yeah, I've heard the term thousands of times, but I don't know exactly what it means.
So I don't want to say anything that is not correct, but all I know is that the term stemmed from a bank robbery that took place in Stockholm years ago. After days with the people who were holding them hostages, the people who freed, they started reporting that they had developed a level of empathy with these criminals that had held them captive for days. And so psychologists start analyzing this thing. What happens to people when they are kidnapped, that after a long time, after a bit, they start empathizing with their kidnappers. So what goes on in there? Now, I don't know anything about psychology, but I'm starting to think that people are slowly getting used to this lifestyle and it's going to be difficult to, make people leave their home again to go to work. I think productivity is going to go down when this is all over. I think people are not going to be motivated. I think there is going to be a second wave of different depression, if you want, than the one that started when the quarantine was enforced.
That's super interesting. You mentioned that. I was just talking to someone yesterday who is at the end of their quarantine in China right now, an American entering, and so he's like at the last couple of days of a 2-week, and he was talking about a very similar thing, that he's like gotten into a rhythm. At the beginning it was hard, and now it's been easy and he's enjoying it, and he's almost like, wow, I get out in 2 days, like what am I going to do? Like I'm used to this like routine. I like in his situation, he cannot leave his hotel whatsoever. Like not even his hotel room.
I heard about it.
Say again?
Yeah. Sorry for cutting you off, but I've heard about it. He must be like stuck in a hotel room, right?
Yeah, 100%. Just like fully, like it's by law he has to stay there for 2 weeks, and his story is really good. He went on a I don't know, 5 or so day long journey just to get from Spain to back to China, and then you get tested, and the whole quarantine process is really intense in China.
Yeah. It's a unique time to be alive. I don't know. I feel like one reason why I strongly wanted to be back in Italy for this quarantine was because I'm very passionate about history, and I feel like this is a unique historical moment in our lives. And why would I not want to be with my fellow citizens, with my friends, with my family? We're not together, but at least we are all here in the same city, So these are my considerations. I don't know if you're interested in them or not.
Sure.
But it really feels like in history, there are always tipping points. A moment when history changes, there is a big upheaval and the course of history changes. I cannot not think that this is one of those tipping points. And I'm the thing that I like. One of my friends was telling me, Tommaso, you think too much. And I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do 24 hours a day at home? I start thinking, I start analyzing the situation. And I think this is a big tipping point. It's going to change, international travel, which is the thing that concerns me the most because I love traveling. Decided to be able to visit my friend in China. And I think this is going to change international travel, the way we interact, the way we work, the way we react to the news of a new virus. How are people going to react to that? I don't know. I think it's going to really shift the world on so many different levels.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about that as well, that like we at the dinner table, that's one thing that's coming. I eat dinner with my mom and dad every night because I'm home temporarily in New York. Can't get back to China at the moment. But we talk about what we think is going to change, and my thought is that the workforce is there's going to be like Zoom, for example, what we're talking on right now, that stock has increased incredibly and people are using that all over the world to do work. I think there's going to be a shift towards a lot of people working from home, even if there isn't the pandemic going on. Like once this is all over, there still will be a shift to push to work at home more, maybe be separated, which could be a good and bad thing. But that's one thing that I think will definitely happen, is there will be more of that happening.
Yeah, I think that this is really gonna change the labor market. In Italy, we're kind of slow in terms of moving from the analogic to the digital. Like I worked in a school here in Milan 2 years ago, full time, and we didn't have online registers for classes. It was all on paper. Most Italian business heavily rely on paper. And right now, even schools are realizing that you can do most things online. We're in 2020, after all, we have all this beautiful technology that here in Italy, we don't fully exploit. So people are starting to say, wow, all these meetings that we do every day, all these things that we are so used to doing in person, they can be done online, which is a good thing, But for me, people are the salt of the earth.
Mm.
I'm the type of person that will start talking to a wall just to talk with someone, as you probably can tell from this conversation that we're having. But for me, this is a bittersweet feeling because yes, you can work from home, you can do all these things long distance. But what about your coworkers that you see every day, that you share your lunch with, that you share meaningful moments with, that you joke with? That can be done online, but it's not the same thing. Like human interaction is so vital for our world, in my opinion. And it would be a shame if this virus completely changed this aspect of lives.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Tommaso, thank you so much for your thoughts and opinion. It's been a really, really great experience talking to you. My last question is always, what do you think the future will hold? You definitely kind of crushed it on your thoughts on travel and that stuff. But if you have anything else to add, let me know. What does the future hold?
What does the future hold? I don't know, man. That is what's exciting about it. I don't know. In a way, you have to look for some excitement. I feel like in this situation, like things are going to change. We're going to witness change. We are going to be part of history, and we have a chance to make history. I know this thing has blown up, stay at home, but okay, by staying at home, you're actually helping this virus from spreading even further. This is really empowering a lot of people. I feel like we want to find the strength to recover from this. And I hope, this is my biggest hope, that the people who rule this world, governments all over the world, influential people, they will start thinking about all the things that need to change for the better. And hopefully this is really the turning point that I was talking about. I just remember, Greta Thunberg, she was probably one of the people of the year. And I remember in one of her speeches, she mentioned trying to use any means of transportation for just one weekend and see what changes. Well, now pictures are going viral of the canals in Venice looking crystal clear. Milan is a horrible city for pollution. Right now, the few times a week that I go to the supermarket, I can smell the flowers on people's balconies 3 stories above me. It's incredible. That's a good thing. Like, nature is slowly waking up again. What can we do more to make this transition holds a lot of individual responsibility in making this world a better place? So it sounds extremely cheesy now that I say it, but that's what I think the future holds.
No, man, that's super inspiring. I think the environment having an opportunity, the climate having an opportunity to get back on its feet. I mean, there's statistics or like theories that we've gained a lot from that. The environment, at least, stopping air travel and like a lot of trains and cars not being running. It's helped a lot. That's what I've heard. Tommaso,
what do you think the future holds before we say goodbye?
What do I think the future holds? I think it's going to be a little more of a road to recovery in terms of like instantly getting back into the swing of things. It's going to be very slow. Like I honestly thought in New York, we would kind of be out of this mid-April. It would be like almost definitely like at the beginning of March. I was like, oh yeah, this will be pretty much over by mid-April. And right now it's April 4th I think it's April 4th. And, I think it's just going to take longer. Like, I'm really hoping to get back to China by, early to mid-May, when I thought I would definitely get back mid-April. So I just think it's going to be a slow transition to get back into the swing of things. I don't know. But the positives, just try and look at the positives. I think there's a chance to reset the norm on what we do as a world. So I think there's that opportunity. And I hope, leaders of the world have a chance to change things. That's what I hope.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're on the same page now.
Yeah, man. All right, Tommaso, thank you so much. What is your online football blog? Maybe you can shout that out.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can find us on Twitter. Our name is the Anglo Italian connection, and you can find a link to our blog. But yeah, if you're interested in football, right now we're kind of low on content. We are trying to figure out what to write about, but hopefully when the leagues are restored, which is something we're strongly looking forward to, there will be more content for you to enjoy. So definitely give us a follow on Twitter if you've got the chance.
What you could possibly do? I watch poker for fun, and sometimes and what people have been doing, these commentators have actually been old games, new commentary. So I mean, I don't know if that's something you could do, but you could watch old like historic football games and comment like during the whole game, and it'd be new commentary because it's like 10 years in the future or something.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
We'll try to talk about that with my partner.
All right, stay busy. Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Boom. That's it. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this podcast valuable, there are many ways you can support it. The best way is by going to my website, observingtheprocess.com. For just $5 a month or $50 for the year, you can become a monthly supporter. This show relies on listener support to stay on the air. So if you find this content valuable, I hope you will consider subscribing. You can find a link to subscribe in the description of this podcast. If you can't support monthly, no worries. You can help out by rating and reviewing on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. You can share it with your friends, you can blog about it, or discuss it on your own podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you for supporting the show. Listeners like you make it possible. If you are looking for information on how to protect yourself and stay safe from COVID-19, please get information from the CDC or the World Health Organization. Also, if you enjoyed the intro and outro music, it was made by my brother, Danny Greenberg. You can go and check out his beats on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, or SoundCloud. He goes by the name Estoric, Estoric. All right, that's it for now.